All right, everyone. This is episode 3 of the Bunker to Bunker podcast. I'm Josh. Usually I'm with my co-host Ethan. Ethan's actually in LACC at the US Open, flying around on the golf cart, volunteering. So he's trying to help set up the tournament. So with the time difference and obligations, we just decided that, I'll do a little betting preview of LACC. Episode 2, we kind of went into the course, a lot about different holes and how unique um, the different undulations, the barrancas, the greens, the firmness, emphasizing driving. So I'm gonna kind of reiterate a lot of those points. Kind of the way I want to structure this is to kind of go really deep into 5 different players, um, kind of what I call like a player spotlight, go into their stats and why I really think they're a good fit, um, in a more in-depth approach. But I'm gonna go through a lot of like the top names on the betting board, and I think on Wednesday we'll do more of like a, who we'd like as like the sleeper fades, and then we'll condense our betting card when we have Ethan. So I'm just gonna dive in. So top of the leaderboard, kind of like the big three. I think the big three was usually Scheffler, Rahm, and Rory. I think now because of Brooks's, being second at the Masters and coming off a win at the PGA, I think he deserves to be in the top three. He's a top 5 player in the world right now. But I'm gonna start with Sky Scheffler. I'm gonna take a deep dive into him. He's kind of like my first player spotlight guy. As I said in episode 2, he was on like the Walker Cup team, so he went 1-0-1. So there is some, um, he's seen the course. Obviously, it wasn't a U.S. Open, um, not designed, but the greens were like not as fast at that point. So the course is going to be playing harder than it was in 2017. But really, like, what's there really not to say about Sky Scheffler? He's a tee to green machine. He's ball striking it. The best player, in the entire world right now from tee to green. His putter has let him down. He lost 8 strokes putting at Memorial, but gained 20 strokes tee to green, and he was a top 5. He was in it until he ran out of holes. So for him, he could be on a winning streak if he could find his putter. So he has seen these putting greens before. I guess the putter does concern me, and he isn't the greatest sand player. He's, I think, around 200 in sand save percentage on tour. There's a lot of bunkers around these greens that could be tough, but you could make that a concern. However, if he hits fairways and he's ball striking like he has, he won't be in those bunkers. So I think Scheffler will be in contention. I think he's someone that I think he's 7.5 to 1 on DraftKings, which we'll see where that ultimately ends at on Wednesday, Thursday morning. But I think it's pretty hard to, if you want someone in contention, to be in it on Sunday on like a back nine, and have a little sweat. I think he's kind of a no-brainer option. So Scott Scheffler is kind of the first guy I'm looking at to bet. Just going on the board, I mean, there's, you have Rahm at 10 to 1, Koepka 11 to 1. As I said, they're kind of probably like the 2 other guys and like a big 3. Rahm kind of hasn't, looked to form since the Masters win, which is pretty understandable. For him, that was a pretty emotional win at Augusta. Um, I've, Ethan and I emphasize driving the ball. I mean, it's not really much distance; it's more accuracy, and you want to be in the right spots on these fairways to attack these pins, because depending on if the ball's below your feet, not below, above your feet, or on, the right side of the fairway, the shot will be harder and the shot might be blind into these greens. And with a lot of trouble around these greens, it's going to be very, you know, strategic of where you place the ball and fairway and, rounds the top 3 driver of the golf ball. He hits a far and he hits a straight. So, someone who also has had a success out west at Torrey and Riv, probably hope to expect John Rahm to be in, there on Sunday. Brooks, he, he's a major champion wagon. He just has a different gear than everyone else. He plays up to his standard. Even if he's playing on a tour that, the competition is less and the courses aren't as hard or challenging as the PGA Tour, which now they're the same entity. So, I was kind of going through his profile, and he usually, he hasn't played in a little bit. Liv didn't have a tournament last week, and I think usually Liv tries to have a tournament before a major. So, I guess it's kind of new territory because I think he usually is someone that likes to play before a tournament before leading into a major. But, Brooks is someone I'm not going to bet on. If he bites me again, he does it again. So, but there's no reason why I think he'll be pretty popular because you can't really bet Brooks unless at a major. So I think he's going to be pretty popular, but he's kind of a pass for me. But he can bite me, if he wants to. Then there's Rory at 14 and Cantlay. Rory I don't think he's doing his press conference this week, which is understandable. I guess he's going to try to focus on golf and not take these questions about this new news merge with the PGA Tour and Liv. He hasn't really been hitting his wedges great. He kind of didn't have a good round 4 at the Canadian Open, being 2 shots back going into Sunday. But he's always fared well in these US Opens. He's a competitor. So I feel like he might not be as popular. 14-1 is you probably haven't seen that number for Rory at a US Open or even a major in the last couple of years. So I think it's a good number play, but someone that I'm not going to be taking because, you only have a certain amount of people you can actually bet on. Then there's Patrick Cantlay. We talked about him last episode with the California connection. He's one of those guys that just doesn't really have a flaw in his game. Good short game, putter. The only knack on him is that he really hasn't done it in the major championship. Doesn't have really good record. So really for him, if there's somewhere for him to win, it's probably here to get his first US Open. I'm gonna say that about the next guy too. Is Xander, who's at 20-1, probably. I can see him dropping down to 18, 16. But Xander's also a California guy. As I said in last episode, 6 top 15s at US Opens. San Diego guy, complete game. I think all the tee matters. He kind of lost his driver early in the year, but the last 3 tournaments he's gained at least 3 strokes off the tee. So if he puts himself in positions on the fairway to attack, he has a great game, great sand game too. And if he can get hot with his putter, I think he can be in it and potentially host his first major in his home state. I think something will be par 5 scoring. There's a lot of holes here that, par is good, but also you can double a lot of holes. So I think if you can take advantage of these par 5s, get some birdies back, and, kind of can stay steady. So Xander is 6 on tour in par 5 scoring. So I think that, if someone who's top 10, in the world at par 5s, and if he can really take advantage and make birdies on those holes, then he can afford to, have a slip up or 2 later. I think that's really important. He also really hasn't gotten it done at majors, and, we saw at Augusta, when Hideki won, that, he was in it on 16 and put it in the water. So kind of very similar to Cantlay. They're both both compared to each other constantly, but I think those two are people that are players that are kind of due, and I think because of the California connection, these two are going to be paired together, and people should expect them to contend at a course that should fit their kind of complete game and creativity. So my third kind of deep player spotlight is someone that I've been on for a while. I actually bet him to win Memorial 2 weeks ago, and catch some money for me, and that's Victor Hovland. He sets up well courses where being good off the tee is a weapon for him. He's one of the best in the world. He hasn't lost strokes off the tee since the Century Tournament of Champions, which was the first tournament of 2023. So practically the whole year he hasn't lost strokes off the tee. He's number 4 in total driving, number 6 in strokes gained off the tee, and 6 in tee to green. So he isn't Scheffler-like with his tee to green and driving play, because Scheffler's just on another tier. But I would say at tier 2, Hovland has to be in that tier. So, if he can put himself, as I said with Scheffler, if he can put himself in positions to really attack with his approach play, which I think is a real emphasis, obviously, to ball strike at a major championship, I think he can contend. We saw him, at the Open at St. Andrews was, T4. He was T7 at the Masters and T2 at the PGA. So, Victor Hovland won't have my money. He's actually going to be, so my brothers and I are in a one and done pool, and you basically pick a golfer each week, and then you can't use them again. And I would say that we're 99% sure that Hovland is our pick, so he won't have my money, but he basically still has my money because we're top 100 in this pool. Shout out to Rick One Good. So if Victor Hovland can drive it well, attack pins, and can continue putting and doing his better short game that he's had in the major championships, I expect him to contend. And that's another thing to check off his box, is that he won at Jack's Place. So he has that tournament. It's just now you have to break the thread and win a major championship. So and I fully expect that this is somewhere, even though I think around the green should be really pretty heavy this week. He doesn't have the best short game, as we all know, but it seems like in major championships, he steps it up. So I expect him to continue to do what he's been doing and step that up. So now just going back to the board, there's kind of the tier of Cam Smith, Hatton, Homa. Hatton has been playing pretty well. He's kind of a top 25 machine. So, I don't mind that play. Cam Smith isn't the greatest driver of the golf ball, but he does have creativity with his putter and short game that, if he can just gain a stroke or two driving, his approach play is elite. He could also be there. I think kind of the most interesting guy that I'm looking at the odds board right now is Colin Morikawa. He's 30-1 at a tournament that we talked before went 4-0 at the Walker Cup. Is from Cali. Very accurate off the tee. I don't think you really need much distance. I don't think that really matters as much, but he's very accurate off the tee. One of the best ball strikers in the world, as we know. So I think Morikawa will be interesting. He does have the back spasm issue that I don't really know the state of it. Hopefully he speaks, or we got, people who are actually on site can kind of speak to how maybe he's walking, hitting, if he's, at the range a lot, playing a lot of holes. So, it'll be interesting, because I think if he didn't have these injuries, I feel like he would be like mid-20s, maybe low 20s, instead of the 30-3 number. So, if you're not concerned with the back spasms, maybe get that number now before maybe some news comes out. I think my next guy that I'm going to preview before I pick my winner, who I kind of passed on the board already, is Justin Rose. Justin Rose is 35-1 right now he's 41 now, just switched on DraftKings. And I don't know the last time Justin Rose has been, probably like sub 40 to win a major. He won in 2013 at Marion. He's played well at Augusta. He's really been playing well in majors. I'm not sure if Rose can win the tournament just because of the talent and the, how deep, like you have to have your A+ up to win on tour now, especially a major championship. But Rose has, I think he can, be in contention. He, since his win at Pebble, he has had 6 top 25 finishes. 4 of those are top 10. He just, had a top 10 at RBC Canadian Open. So he's in, the right form. He's really the only problem with him is that he isn't the strongest guy off the tee. Roy hasn't ever been the greatest driver, but his approach play is elite. Has probably one of the best short games, and he's been in these major championships his whole life. He's definitely a veteran on tour, definitely like the back nine of his career. So I think if he can get his irons dialed in, he's gained 4.74 strokes the last 3 weeks on approach. As I said, he's elite short game. That I think having experience and kind of having that creativity too will be very important. So I think seeing his approach numbers recently around the green, if he can make some putts, I think he'd be in it. I feel like it's kind of hard for him to actually maybe hoist the trophy, but hopefully he proves me wrong. But I think he's someone I'm going to target in the matchup market or even the finishing position, maybe like a top 30 or something. So, but that's not for my winner. He's actually become quite popular winner that I've kind of listened to and seen. I did my write-up. I actually bet Spieth. So yeah, my winner is Jordan Spieth of the 2023 U.S. Open and LACC. I think he's going to win. I'm a huge Spieth fan. I've been on him since 2013, since his kind of rise to fame as a kid, and then playing on the President's Cup. So, but yeah, I think Jordan Spieth is my winner. Recent form, major record, creativity on these greens. He won in 2015 at Chambers Bay. I think if he can keep up his driving, approach play, and make some putts, I think he'll be in contention. But I'll go into now the deeper stats of him. Off the tee, I think he's driving it as good as he can, as good as he has been in his entire career. He gained 4.27 strokes off the tee at Memorial and 5.7 at the PGA Championship. He really hasn't done that in a while, kind of gaining those strokes. He isn't the longest guy, per se. He's not known as hitting it far, like a Bryson or a Rahm or Scheffler and Hovland and those guys. But, if he's gaining strokes off the tee, and so if he has confidence in his game off the tee, which, we've seen at, British Open, putting it way right or kind of hooking it and taking himself out of holes, I think if he can, stay accurate, put himself in position on approach, he's gained strokes on approach in all but one tournament since the Phoenix Open. So that's back in February. So you've seen his consistency throughout the year, where Spieth is usually up and down throughout his career. The tournament that he didn't gain strokes from approach was the Wells Fargo Championship at Quail Hollow, which until this year, since he had to play in it because of the designated event, he doesn't play Quail Hollow ever. He's always skipped that. Hasn't had his eye. I guess the last time he played it was the President's Cup, but he so he only goes there when he absolutely has to. So he also had his wrist injury that came out after that tournament. So battling all of that, it wasn't probably the greatest fit for him throughout that tournament. But I'm not concerned with his wrist injury. To be completely honest, I think it was big news, but he came back at Jack's place and put up a T5 and drove it pretty well and hit some good irons and was there. Didn't really contend, but he was still top 5. So something that I kind of emphasized before, and I think around the green play is really important. Spieth plays well at Augusta and British Opens because the courses that they play are very creative minds around the greens, wedge shots, approach play, how to spin it. He's a really good putter, definitely a great lag putter on these really fast greens that are going to be very important to know. Even though there's some putts you might not need to make, you got to put it inside a putter in the friendship zone to make pars or get up and down from the sand and these roughs. So I think that the more unique the course is, this isn't a traditional U.S. Open setup. He won at Chambers Bay, which was probably the most unique course that they played, a U.S. Open in my recent memory. But they've been to Tour, they've been to Winged Foot, which is more bomb out there, high rough. That's not his game. His game is more, fairway and emphasize short game, spinning, and being creative. And I think this course, if there's ever a time for Spieth to win another U.S. Open, I think it's here. So yeah, Jordan Spieth is my winner. I've been a big Spieth fan, as I said. So it'll be, hopefully he's in contention. I think he's also become a more disciplined golfer. At Augusta, he rose up on the last day on Sunday, but he had 2 holes on round 1 where he took a double and then a bogey, where he was probably trying to do too much. And I think at the PGA, he, played well, but didn't have the greatest stuff to actually contend in that tournament. But I think he was more disciplined, as what I've heard and have seen. So I think if he can have the right mindset coming in here, that you don't have to be a hero constantly, I think he will contend. And what worries me is that he's become, I think, a little bit of a popular pick in the betting community. But I always bet Spieth, but yeah, he's my official pick. So those are kind of my preview of the board. So I guess we'll get into more, maybe some sleepers and fades with Ethan. I guess we'll get his side of how LACC is. I'm really jealous of him, but yeah, go put in your Jordan Spieth tickets because he's gonna win. So I'll see you guys next time.